dissent? We will check. Okay, we are good to go.
Okay. So I call to order the Personal Finance and Auxiliary Services Committee meeting of the School District of Menominee Falls Board of Education. It is May 26th, 2026, Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. This meeting is taking place at Village Hall Upper Level Conference Room 3344 and 45 at W156 N8480 Pilgrim Road, Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. There is a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at board committee meetings. There will be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any item on the agenda. A live broadcast will be streamed on the school district's YouTube page. To watch the recording, please visit our School District Menominee Falls YouTube site. Okay, was this meeting properly posted?
Yes.
Okay. Move on, I motion to approve the minutes of the closed session from May 4th, 2026 of the Personal Finance and Auxiliary Services Committee.
I'll make the motion.
I will second. And then that already moves us, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. And that is unanimous. Okay, so now we can move on to discussion items. So our first one up is long-term financial planning.
Alright. Everybody has the packets. This is in the packets, also on board docs. The majority of this is going to look very similar to our last meeting. So May 11th, we reviewed kind of like the first step in long-term financial planning, thinking about 27, 28 and beyond. So 26, 27 is a separate agenda item. We're presenting a balanced budget. This conversation is focused on 27, 28 and beyond. I'm not going to go into deep detail into each of the pages like we did at the May 11th meeting, but I wanted to include them because they're critical in providing the context about why we're here, the assumptions that are included in our budget forecast, just a couple things at a high level. Special ed reimbursement rate at 38%, so state budget has 45% for 26, 27, but we are at 38% in order to be conservative. We will look for future forecasting from our financial advisors to determine if it's appropriate for us to increase that 38% into the future. I get that bill that we talked about at the May 11th meeting that was in the works, died at the assembly, so we are back to where we were at the May 11th meeting. There's no additional special ed funding at this time. So the budget forecast with the numbers, the 5-year forecast is in the packet, as well as additional assumptions that are used throughout the process. And then I just have a note about looking out long-term. There are multiple state biennial budgets represented in a 5-year budget forecast. Obviously, a lot can happen. As we learned, sometimes things could happen in the middle of a state biennial budget, which is not very common and almost happened and then didn't about a couple weeks ago. So we use all of the most accurate assumptions that we have at this time, but even if, that budget proposal that happened a couple weeks ago would have gone through, it wouldn't have changed our picture dramatically, in a dramatic way. We'd still be having the same conversation. The greatest extent of the special ed funding increase that was proposed would give us realistically probably around $650,000 on the high end, with the state calculated for each school district for us would be about $1 million, but I wouldn't trust that number. So on the conservative side, that would have changed our budget forecast by the tune of probably about $650,000. So it's definitely impactful, but not changing the long-term picture of our 5-year forecast.
quick question, do you think it's possible that like this year they gave us 35%? Do you think that's quite possible in future years, that we need to be more conservative in our budgeting, or do you think 38 is pretty safe?
That's a good question. So, what the Bairds and the PMAs of the world have calculated is that the allocation at the state level, while DPI is at 35%, and we won't actually know until July, which is silly because our year is actually over at that point, it's likely looking at like 38%. So 38% when the state budget is at 45 feels very safe. I would look to, as we learn more about because it's all aid is year delayed. So whatever districts are actually spending in 25-26 is impacting the 26-27 aid allocation and aid distribution. So we'll keep an eye out. We're doing our reporting throughout the summer and as the fiscal year ends throughout the fall, and all districts are doing that in the same place. So the state can then take a look at here's how many special ed Fund 27 expenditures were reported across all school districts, and then here's our allocation, and then we rely on our financial advisors with Baird to say the state has this much in the funding category at the state level, and we're anticipating that's, the actual reimbursement would be looking something like 38, 39, 40%.
Thank you.
So we continue to have the why are we here slides. I won't again go into depth like we did on May 11th, but long story short, years of inadequate funding at the state level, 17 consecutive years without school districts having an increase in revenue that tied to inflation like it used to be the first 16 years of the funding formula. Declining enrollment on top of that, and then inadequate special ed revenue has put our school district in this position, and we are amongst many other school districts across the state that are in a very similar place, having the same conversation. I included the funding formula that we talked through last time and a couple of graphs, and then again, I won't spend time in depth going through these, but the savings over the last few school districts that we've built together, this little chart exists every year as school districts put together their budget. The way the funding formula works right now and has over the last many years is that it's just a structural deficit. There's really not extra money. So every year we're having this conversation about what are we reducing in order to balance our budget. So while I have included a couple of years here of reductions in order to balance our budget over time, this is not an extensive list, and it goes well beyond this if you look back over the last decade plus. Which leads us to the key parts of our presentation tonight, our discussion tonight, the remaining projected balances after 26-27. Again, that's a separate budget item. We'll go through discussion item C. But after the 26-27 fiscal year, our health insurance reserve account, which is our flexible spendable category of one-time funding, is approximately $2 million. And then the Fund 73 OPEB trust, which OPEB is other post-employment benefits, that balance after 26-27 is approximately $2.3 million. And those dollars have to be funded directly and only for our retirement benefits. So those are not as flexible as the other category of funding. So that's the quick version of kind of why are we here, what have we done over the years to put ourselves in a better position, make reductions, be financially responsible. And then tonight's conversation is really going to focus on some of those potential future reductions that we have available to us. And there's a few bullet points, it's only one slide, but I wanted to spend some time on each one, understanding the appetite for exploring each of these items further. I have some information on some of them, but a lot of them are more of an in-depth study that I want to get a sense of, what is our homework assignment basically from this meeting. So the first item on here is retiree attrition savings. So that item is when we have our long-term staff who've been here for many, many years and they've reached that point where they're able to retire. They're generally at the top of the pay scale at that point and are generally replaced with staff who are not at the top of the pay scale. So we are really in our third and final year of having that group still with us in 26-27, and will be likely leaving at the end of the 27-28 fiscal year. So we have that projected one additional year of approximately $500,000 of savings from that item. So I guess not really too much to we need to dig into on that piece. That's more of a, we know that piece exists, we've done it. The current budget for the 26-27 year is the second time we've done this, where we've kept track, and again, last year utilized the savings that were above and beyond what we've used to balance our budget, that piece in our budget reductions sheet. The above and beyond amount went back into teacher pay and other employee groups, special ed and
Administrative assistants.
administrative assistants. So we feel confident about the 500,000 for one more year.
And that's the last year of our early retirement window as well.
Yes.
So it'll go back to age 57 and 62, depending on the group, instead of 55.
You know how many we have in that population in the district? Or will be in that population? It's okay if you don't know.
I think we still have about 40 teachers who are eligible,
Okay.
but that's eligible. Like,
Yeah, doesn't mean they're
Yeah.
going to, but just curious.
a
Thank
lot
you.
of people don't retire at 55 yet, so, but there's about 40 left who would meet the eligibility. But we've never had everybody who meets eligibility retire.
Mhm.
It's usually in the low 20s. every
Like
year.
percent?
Oh, no,
Or
the
20
number, like
number,
20
20,
people.
okay.
Mhm. 20 to 25 people a year.
Okay, thank you.
It's expensive to retire.
Mhm. So the next piece is additional open enrollment seats. The number on here was just an arbitrary number. It really is not, was not a lot of meat behind that. But it's more to show that an open enrollment seat is approximately $10,000, and you could get up to a significant dollar amount, obviously the more seats you open. I went through at a preliminary level. And our class sizes, especially being partner schools, and then just where enrollment projections are falling for next year, we don't have a ton of space at the elementary level. I'll go through kind of in chunks. So pause the elementary thought. Middle school is stuffed. Those class sizes are within at the high end of our optimal ranges that were established by the board. Those are larger class sizes right now in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years. So there's really not room at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level. At the high school level, we've opened the 21 seats already for 9th grade. And that's another agenda item E that we'll speak to in a little bit. There is potentially space at the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade years. And I guess it's worthy of a conversation if the board is interested in that. We can take a look at what that space would look like. We did open for the 25-26 year, 5 seats of 9th grade and 5 seats of 10th grade for open enrollment. The 10th grade seats, the students, majority of them did not last due to habitual truancy. 10th grade is a hard year to transition because everybody's coming in new as a 9th grader, and so they have made a transition somewhere likely as, you know, maybe to a new school, to their high school, and then are coming in here as 10th graders. So we found, you know, from experience that it wasn't entirely successful of a program for our incoming 10th grade open enrollments. That being said, we could absolutely still open them. We get essentially paid by the day. So as however many days the student is here, that open enrollment amount, that roughly $10,000, $11,000 amount, we get, it's really a per diem. So any amount of days we're here, a student is with us for open enrollment, we're getting compensated for those days essentially. So the high school is a conversation, and then we can talk through the elementary piece as well.
And then prior year, we were late to the game, so
Yes.
we were finally getting to the people who could have a spot end of July, August, up until school was starting. This year, we were able to start so much earlier, so the kids are already making that decision to come here. And so we'll see what the data looks like, but I feel like it should be a little bit more successful
If we
for
open up
them.
more now, you're saying open up more now or you're saying next year?
Oh, no, she's talking about next year, but I'm just
Okay.
saying, I think our first year,
We're actually talking about.
isn't necessarily the best year of data because kids most families had already made decisions by then.
Okay.
People are making decisions at the last minute, days before school start. So I think this year is gonna be a really, well, the year that we're coming into is gonna be a really good year to kind of look at the data and see where the success was and the things that Mr. Gebauer and his team put into place to get these kids in. I think it'll be really interesting to see how this year goes as more of a model year for things than that first year.
Yeah,
We have all 21 seats filled,
Oh, perfect.
so they still have some processes to work on. But all 21, we have 21 open enrollment students that are at least verbally committed, some are beyond verbal commitment. And there is a possibility, if the board chooses to do this, to add open enrollment seats for this coming year still, based on the policy that was changed a year ago. Allow that action in June. I'm not suggesting that's a recommendation, but I'm just suggesting it's possible.
Would the high school be able to support additional students? I know they have an onboarding plan and hope to be successful with adding more. Would they be able to maintain that same good plan? I mean, I know it's hard to know, but
I think right now with the lack of success, with the lower numbers last year, that said, there is a robust plan in place this year to try to improve on those sorts of things, engagement, other elements as well. So it's still possible to add open enrollment seats, but the space would be high school. The space would be high school.
Is there any open enrollment opportunity in lower grades or only high school?
I can go for that.
Yeah.
So this is specifically for next, like, we could open seats in, it has to be after June, for the coming school year. There's minimal space, but there could be space. So if I count how many grades there are across all elementaries, there's 14, meaning all schools. You could add one open enrollment seat per grade at each school, and you just added 14 seats.
Okay.
You know, and that's minimal addition to, Ben Franklin first grade, for example. So it's definitely a possibility. There's some different philosophies about adding open enrollment seats, and one of those, so like we've kind of gone to like the high school side, right? To when a student comes into our school district, if they have an IEP, we do not have space for special ed open enrollment seats. So generally, by the high school level, a student has already been identified with having special needs, needing an IEP. So having the high school seats is kind of why obviously we had this space as well, but that grade level allows you to generally, obviously could still happen, but generally avoid having a student identified, that hasn't been identified already for needing an IEP, for whatever their need is. The other end of the spectrum is bringing students in when they're little, and then they've been here with us their full career, and they're learning the Menominee Falls way their entire school career. So there's definitely a benefit to that. However, a student, if they're here with us and don't have an IEP, they could at any time be identified for needing an IEP, and generally that just comes with having an additional cost. Special education needs are more costly than a regular. Normally, whether it's needing OT or PT or speech or whatever it is, maybe a one-on-one aid even, those are all possibilities of additional costs that could happen if a student, at any time, but generally is more likely to happen if we bring a student in at a lower grade. We do have enrollment projections that they're essentially right on where we assumed they would be, where we projected they would be for next year at our grade levels, with the exception of, and I hate to even say this because it's so hard to project, 4K. So our 4K at Ben Franklin and our 4K at Shady Lane right now are both about 10 to 18 under where we projected. We do know, and one thing that I would definitely want to look at before we decide to open any seats is where do, like, the enrollment trend throughout the summer. Like, we have that data, how many students historically have enrolled with us for 4K in July and August to know how much space we need to be saving.
And how many people skip 4K but do come in 5K?
Yes,
Where you have
right.
unknown students entering in 5K.
And we do have a number of families, just because the requests, I hear about them from Mr. Halverson, and we do have requests for students not in the ninth grade to open enroll, and they have other students already with us. Just through past open enrollment.
So it's like a whole family who wants to come and we don't have one for the younger ones.
Yeah,
But you had to say no because we don't have open seats in anything but high school, which is, we're following the
Right.
Yeah.
rule and, you know, the way that it's written.
I'm inclined to let Mr. DeBauer's plan play out this year. I'm going to 21 of them. And readdress it next winter. Right, if this goes perfect and I forget how big the current 8th grade or next year's 8th grade class will be going into freshman, but like if he says, yeah, like this went great, give me 40, and we're keeping the class sizes the same, then I'm not opposed to doing more. Tell me right now what the 8th grade class size is not important, but just more of an expression. Given the problems we had initially, I think it makes sense to give it a year to see how it goes.
I'd be interested I'd even be interested in entertaining this year if it makes sense. However, then we're facing what we did last year of late open enrollment, if we're doing it for younger grades. I don't know if we typically experience the same truancy for those younger grades as we would in high school. I think the bigger thing to me is does like the principals believe they could support that in a way that the student could be successful? And I think 1 in a grade is a lot easier than 20 in a grade.
That 14 numbers like the whole section. 18.
We know our bubble is current 5th grade going into 6th grade. We know that current 5th going into 6th, which is why we've had to move certain staff, special education staff from elementary to middle in order to support that bubble. So we know that that's a bubble coming through.
When you say bubble, you mean large?
Larger.
Okay.
So it's larger class size in 5th grade than in outgoing 8th grade or current 8th going to 9th.
Yeah, we had to add a section of 6th grade to the middle school to accommodate the new class.
Yep.
And then we did have to move special ed teachers over as well to kind of follow that class, yeah.
Bigger class size.
The NDAs moved too.
Yes.
staff reductions. Any other commentary on overall? Okay. So we're getting to, all these are, I'm saying, they're all painful, right? None of this list is fun, so that's, I guess, what tonight is. I have just a ballpark out, using a ballpark number of $100,000 for a certified staff member. Generally it's less, it's about 90, but for sake of rough math, if you go back to the 5-year budget forecast and the numbers, I plugged numbers in here just so that mentally you can kind of like think through what does this mean for balancing future budgets. Staff reductions are where, because our budget is made up of over 70% of our budget is made up of salaries and benefits for staff, that is the only place you're going to get meaningful budgetary savings, unfortunately. You can't get there if you're not at the certified staff level. And under that, we talk about EAs, and that's another item on here. Those are less impactful financially. Also, you could say we could reduce every single administrator, and that doesn't get you to the $4 million savings. So we're at the certified staff level and looking at everything, but this is the area that we would have to go to in order to balance future budgets to this extent.
Usually it's roughly 4 educational assistant positions to 1 teacher, roughly.
And certified staff are teachers and administrators for the most part. So we're all.
So when you say staff reduction, that would include, I'm repeating what you just said, because I was like, oh, teachers and administrator?
Yes.
Certified staff means you need a license to teach with your, or to
Right.
do your job.
Yes.
A specific license.
Good question.
Interesting.
And then I guess, I mean, I think you could also just say fairly enough, it's people who cost about $100,000 or more. So there are some other people in the
Right.
district.
Yes.
I mean, not a lot, but there are a few other people in the district who are not certified but cost maybe $90,000 to $100,000 a year with
I see
benefits.
what you're saying.
Good point,
It's really the dollar amount.
that's right.
Ugh,
10 certified, I mean, it's just that certified staff make up way more than
Majority.
50% of our staff. But mathematically, the people have to be coming in around that $90,000-$100,000 mark with benefits to make that 10 number work. Just like I said, like EAs, they'd need 4 of them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so,
I would imagine that would then impact like class sizes and things of that nature, do you feel? Or have you
Yeah.
looked or just more
Yeah,
Hold up
so.
to
and open enrollment.
and
Yep.
what we could take for open enrollment?
Yep, there are, I mean, the majority of our certified staff are in front of students in, generally classroom setting. There are some staff who don't have a classroom.
But then that load would have to get passed to someone, that load does not go away just because they don't exist.
Right. So there, I mean, to get a little specific, I guess there's people who do interventions, there are people who coach. You start getting into the layer outside of a classroom teacher, but you could start looking at your specials, your foreign languages, your musics, the list goes on.
so
Caitlin
staff
hates talking about it.
I do, it's painful.
I mean, it's not, none of these are good options.
You look
Fun
painful.
options, right?
like staff reductions could also be like restructuring administrative roles.
Yes.
Mhm.
Giving multiple duties
Mhm.
to administrators?
Yeah, or
Yes,
looking at comparing high school to middle school and their admin staff,
yes,
or like district office.
yes.
Like I said, it's really the salary amount.
Well, those are all-
It's really the salary amount.
Those are all accurate,
Yes.
that everything that you're saying is, those are places that are identified by that line item.
I mean, there are some administrators that don't meet
Right.
the threshold though either. So
Mhm.
it's really the dollar amount to get to $1 million.
Ugh,
It's the dollar amount of the
So you give
person's
it-
salary to get there, and it can be any of those people. It's just that certified staff make up, like,
Mhm.
I don't know, 95% or more of those people, so.
I get what
So-
you're saying.
If we were to, so we have 26, 27 balance, and if we said, okay, this is a lever we're gonna pull, just, maybe it's, whatever, 5, 10, whatever, some significant amount of reductions were needed. What does that look like? Obviously, maybe there'll be closed session discussions over the next year, but like, how do you, what am I trying to say? Over the last several years, you guys have done a really good job of making reductions with retirements. Your first bullet was about retirement attrition. And so, as you're saying, well, I don't know who's gonna retire and what does that planning process look like as we get towards this time next year, so we're not, maybe, hopefully, right, we're not surprising people, that there's some way to better communicate that, but
Yeah,
I guess on a high level, what is that?
so I think when we get to the staffing, it's the last of the open, but the staffing update, there is a section where you can see, we actually did do some cuts too of positions of people who retired.
Yes, I saw that.
So I think, I don't know if this list is we're pulling all these levers at the same time, but
Sure.
you could be pulling both the retiree attrition saving lever, at the same time you're pulling the staff reduction lever and taking advantage of, okay, these 3 people are retiring and we think based on student enrollment, we could actually cut those sections. Then I think we're cutting them and they're going into that line item. But then we'll have somebody retire and it's like, no, we have way too many seventh graders, we can't do anything at the seventh grade level. But instead of a $98,000 a year teacher, we're gonna hire a $60,000 a year teacher. So I think those two, for the last couple of years, are kind of being pulled in tandem as it makes sense. It's not like one or the other, and it's usually the principals who are kind of playing that, doing that math of, yeah, I can cut this because I still have enough seats over all my English classes to cut this high school English position. So they're usually happening together, and they've happened together the last few years.
So what I've seen other districts do is put together, for lack of a better word, like a stoplight activity, where we could list out any number of, reductions, staff reductions, and we go red, yellow, green. Green as in, let's do that, pull that lever. Yellow is, potentially if we need to, and then red is absolutely that's not a reduction that we're willing to make at this time.
So
So
Fond du Lac did a good job of that.
I kind of see that as
Of
a future
laying out
activity
that
for this committee.
For jobs that cause I know it's possible that you'll still get resignations through the rest of the year, rest of the summer. I know it can happen. For those, are there any ones that there's more discussion rather than like an immediate post, or because we've done what we're gonna talk about, there's
Yeah.
not more discussion around should we repost this
I
or
feel
can
like-
we adjust?
I feel like at this point,
It's pretty close.
we're filling them.
Okay.
And honestly, that cuts into your attrition savings. Because those people are not necessarily going to bring savings in the person we hire after them.
Yeah.
So if a second year teacher resigns, it's not, it might actually cost more money to hire
Yeah, we
somebody.
might be hiring a 5-year person.
That's why that number is just fluid.
Yeah.
For, the summer months. I can't imagine that we would, cut the position, because at this point, the high school and middle school have already selected their courses. The kids are in courses, usually, aside from this 4K number, which is looking a little low, the other ones are stable, with their class sizes, so it would be unusual. Now, it's possible, like, what if somebody in district office, who doesn't have a classroom full of kids said, you know what, I'm retiring, well, that might be on the table to decide. But I think anything that's in a school, that's set already for next year.
Yeah.
But there could be some other areas, where maybe it could happen, but it's a pretty small area where it could happen.
I'm gonna go into school closure. So there is a ballpark number that generally is accompanied by school closure, which is about $1 million. $1 million of savings that would be essentially locked off your deficit number into each future year. Generally, that's about 10% operational savings, meaning like your utility bill and things like that. And the other majority of it, 900,000 in very ballpark numbers, is staff savings. Anyway, so generally you're combining at that time, you're combining class sizes and you're essentially, if you think of like, okay, what is that each building that's not needed? A principal, a custodian, generally, maybe an office admin assistant or something like that. And then you're generally talking about teachers. Or is there a counselor position that now can be essentially combined and maybe you're reducing something there? So school closure has $1 million associated with it, but we're kind of at the same point we just were with staff reductions. Like all savings come through staff reductions.
I think the podcast that I sent to all the board, if you didn't have a chance to listen to that, they did a really good job. And it doesn't use this district as an example, which is good, but they use 2 Waukesha County districts just to give examples. They kind of get to this point of school closure in there, that podcast was really good. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it.
How would that work here in Menominee Falls?
What would it look like?
Well, you're not gonna close the high school
Mhm.
and you're not gonna close the middle school. So if you closed an elementary school, would it be that one side of town has like the K through second grade and then the 3 through 5th and the other one has K through 5th? Or is it that you would turn one of the 3 to 5s into 3 to 5s across the whole district and then it's I mean, I
Yep.
guess, how would that even
Probably
be
MTV.
here?
Yeah, based on board, this came up at the last board meeting a little bit, and we've had a few internal discussions about it. No, nothing would be ideal, of course, but when you look at the logistics of our buildings, Ben Franklin is a large building. Even with district office moving in there is still space. Riverside is connected to the community center. There's opportunities to grow Riverside into the community center. That's not ideal, obviously, but we just built it and we own it, that facility. So those two facilities are kind of locked in. And then Shady Lane is relatively newly renovated, not new, but a lot of newer renovations. And if you just look at, and I know this is coming up in our agenda about facility planning, but if you look at facilities in the most need of work, we're being told from multiple sources in and out of the district that it's Valley View. So, I mean, I think part of that has to do with long-term facility planning. Like, are we gonna put those dollars into Valley View?
What would okay, so I guess I'm just
Would it be
Say,
like 3 K through 5, or would it be
so would
K through 2, 3 through 5, 3 through 5?
I think you'd
Yeah.
probably look at a New Berlin, where they made decisions years ago to go 7-12. We don't have enough room at our high school to do that, but we have enough room at the high school to go 8-12. You know, New Berlin already does 7-12.
okay.
So there's options. There's
I'm just
really-
wondering, like you've got the two sides of town where you have 2 elementaries and 2 elementaries. So then if you go down to 3 elementaries, how are you breaking up this
So-
K through, I guess maybe it's 4 because maybe now the 5th graders are at the middle school,
You'd
but
probably have one elementary on each side of town that would handle littles or a certain age.
Mhm.
And then one of the remaining elementaries,
that's all 3rd through
something.
4th, okay.
And then you'd have to shift some grades to the high school, probably 8th grade. That you would probably shift 8th grade to the high school, like not ideal, we're just theoretically talking. Just we asked the question, but because there's room at the high school, you would have to shift that way.
You have to shift-
Even if we
shift
shift that way, is there then space at all the other schools? I mean, closing a school is not something obviously we take lightly, but do we physically,
So
do we have the facility space
the
to?
cost?
Probably easier to just cut 10 positions
Yeah.
throughout the
So
district.
I think that's kind of where you land in like a similar position.
I don't think so.
There's also, I wanted to say this before I forgot on like what it would look like. But we would probably end up redistricting because if you did shift and say you shifted the grades up and then you ended with like partner schools at whatever grade level for elementary and then one other school that's like the other grades, you're probably going to end up based on the size of your schools redistricting, which is a very emotional and painful process for the community, like.
I don't think
Even the sister school system isn't the most pain-free experience.
yeah, I mean, and I'll just based on the podcast, I wouldn't think closing the school is something in the short term that we should be, talking about. Maybe that's after the facility, maybe after a long-term facility plan gets worked out. Maybe that is what that's gonna say. I mean, because that's why you do that sort of thing, is to get somebody outside to say, here's what your facilities really look like. Here's the dollar amounts you need to put in the next 3 years to 5 years in order to get value, this, and this, drive-ups, all of that. So,
Well, school closure also makes me think of we hear school closure and you think you shut down a school that's gonna be all this money. It reminds me of when we talked about selling TJ land or the other land, like all this money for the land, and then we get the land assessment, and it was like, oh, like this was pennies
Yeah.
compared to what we're talking about. That's what I'm starting to see school closure like as well.
It's like 1/4 of the deficit we're looking at.
Yeah, so like you do that and then you still have 3 million left.
Yeah.
You know, the first year.
And a lot of heartache.
Yeah, and a lot of heartache. But there's also a challenge with, you know, when would you do it? Like the ideal scenario is that you phase, well, I don't know, I guess there's different scenarios, but like one scenario is that you phase the students out, so you're not finding those savings immediately because you're letting the students follow through, but you might not be able to do that. I have to think through logistically how that would work, but if you did shift all of your grades, like it might just be one whole rip the Band-Aid off process. And there's also a piece that like our schools aren't baby elementary schools. So, I mean, there's other school districts who are doing this process that have 100 something, 200 students in an elementary school, and that makes more sense. I mean, our elementary school, Ben Franklin's 525, Riverside 465, Shady Lane 461, Valley Views are smallest at 337. So none of those are itty bitty schools.
I guess my takeaway is that we asked the question, I think for now you've answered it, that it's not a 27, 28 or 28, 29 thing that's gonna make sense. Maybe right if the enrollment keeps going, maybe we're having this discussion in 2032 or whatever, but so to me, like, I don't know, you answered the what if question, and I don't know that you need to take
I
it
don't-
further.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it doesn't seem like the right choice right now.
Red light.
Okay, well, at any time we can study that, you know, at a more in-depth level, so we'll wait for board direction on, you know, if we're really looking into what does that actually look like for our school district. We've done, you know, Mr. Munoz set up those preliminary conversations about what that could look like and looking at the enrollment numbers, could they fit? That's where we kind of landed on that. The grade shifting would be the only way. Okay, SDMF retirement program reductions, and I specifically put SDMF in there because this is not the Wisconsin retirement system, ETF. This is specific to our own school district, the program that we have for our staff. And we've talked about, and was in, I don't think it's in this presentation, but it is in detail in the May 11th one, the projected cost over the next decade of what that program would look like for, in terms of cost for our school district. So we plan to bring forward to this committee in August, by August, what changes to that plan could look like for future savings. We do
So
have
when you say initial plan by August 2026, what does that mean?
a conversation at this committee of what a new,
In August? No, wait.
yes, a
For the August
discussion,
meeting.
a discussion at this meeting of what a new retirement plan could look like. I mean, there's an option of, you could eliminate it altogether at any time. That's worst case scenario.
That gives me a heart palpitation.
We'll
Yes.
provide options. Financial options.
It's everything from keeping it to
Mhm.
completely getting rid of it and everything in between.
So we'll provide options in August. As it relates to the slide in this presentation that speaks to it.
And
And
that,
just to put sorry Caitlin,
No, you're
one
good.
slide before the final slide is what we're talking about. We have 2.3 million, this one.
yeah,
We have 2.3 million in Fund 73 OPEB trust. We have much more than that in projected expenses. That's on some previous slides. So that's what that August, that's the why of it.
Yeah, the next 2 years, if everybody retired,
Mhm.
would be about, we would be over 2 million just for those 2 years.
Mhm.
So that's kind of why it's a little bit more pressing.
so that's more to come at a future meeting.
I just say it's nice that we have this OPEB trust extra money to use to pay it, cause
Mhm.
we've been paying these retirement benefits out of the general fund all these
Mhm.
years. It's never been paid out of this. This is a different benefit that was retired and overfunded. And once, there's federal employment law or whatever, ERISA, I don't know, laws that say if you overfund something, you can't just take the money back, it now has to sit there. So this money is like a gift to this other retirement plan, otherwise we'd be paying it out of the general fund.
Mhm.
So,
It gives us 2.5 year window.
Yeah.
To not have to take money out of.
so it's not like this is underfunded because the retirement, the
Right.
SDMF plan is way more than 2 million and somebody underfunded it, that is not the case. That is,
This was overfunded pre-Act 10 when you had to pay for healthcare and you were required to create these trust accounts to make sure that you could continue to fund the cost of the health benefits people were receiving in retirement. And then our people no longer qualified, I think it was like 3 years ago now. And so this money is extra that is not going to pay that prior liability and then is only able to pay for this new liability that we created post Act 10. But did not continue to fund. So even though we created a new, before us, retirement, they didn't keep funding it. They
but it
just kinda,
grows because of interest.
grows.
and,
but nobody kept the actuarial work going of, let's make sure every year we're putting some money, away for this. We have just been taking it out of Fund 10.
And we were in, when we look at that chart, we were in the high years, like just 2 years ago, it was 500 something thousand, now we're at 1 million, and it's 1 million for 5 years in a row, roughly. And then it's like 800,000 still, we stay in that high range, so people, are seeing the benefit of that when it was initiated.
Can you, is it easy to pull up that slide
Yeah,
from
it's right
May,
before.
you said
I
it's on
don't
the.
think I included it in this one.
But I mean, if you go to the May board docs meeting
Oh,
and just
yeah,
click on
just
the
in this
attachment.
in here.
Was it in long-term planning?
Yeah.
So.
You see that? So these are the numbers we're looking at, so these numbers were tolerable in our budget, in our Fund 10 general operating budget, and then this is where we're at, which is great, people are experiencing, they've been through they're meeting their criteria, 20 years of service and whatever age is required, with it, whether or not you're in the early retirement option, 55 or 57, 62. But these are the expensive years, and so we're at, the line, and we have 2.3 million left after 26, 27. So this is the why of bringing forward a new options.
Alright.
Okay.
Next.
Reduce high school program offerings. And kind of going hand in hand with increased high school class sizes in core areas. So we've talked about the effort that we've been making over the years to increase class sizes at the high school level so that we are not seeing the lopsidedness of our elementary school classes be greater than our high school classes. And that's been happening, but it's a slower and more complex and complicated effort than at the elementary level when it's simply a division problem.
Yeah, and they're connected, I'm just gonna jump in there, reducing high school program offerings and class sizes, they're connected. And I'll just use, we have some wonderful academies, right, we do. Our academy system and programs at the high school are robust, from the Health Share Academy and so on, right? The Educator Academy. That said, when you have some of that, we have robust and all the program offerings beyond that a high school could want. But that said, sometimes those class sizes, there's some reduced class sizes as a result in some of those specialty areas. And that's why it's not as easy as like at the elementary school. You add 2, you do the math, and it's pretty straightforward, you know. At the high school, it's more complicated than that because of options, and so many options in a comprehensive high school. And we have a top 10, top 15 high school in the state of Wisconsin, so there's a balance there. You know, of course, we want to maintain that and improve upon that, which it sounds like, you know, in initial information from the high school that we're doing that, just from, you know, some of the preliminary releases of ACT data.
I saw a Facebook post on, from the district, for the academy graduations, and they have a picture of the group that's graduating from the Educator Academy, and there's like 7 kids.
It's tiny.
So there's 7 kids, 7 seniors in classes that I presume they're the only 7 kids in, so they've got 7 kids to 1 teacher. I mean, I'd love for more kids to go into teaching and certainly encourage that, but I mean, if 1 teacher is teaching 7 kids, that means that 1 teacher is not teaching 25 kids.
For some of these academies, do we ever like do every other semester or every other year to try to capitalize on keeping the class size? So like maybe there's 7 teachers in the senior class, but maybe there's 10 in.
Yeah, I mean, I give Mr. Bauer and his team a lot of credit. They look at this often. Every year when they come around to sectioning, they look at different ways, and they've made some adjustments for next year versus this year with how they're doing some of that. But, you know, the fact remains that some of those, not all, but some of those academy classes, not all, but some are, you know, cause the overall average to go down. But the flip side of that is we do have this robust, you can pretty much get just about anything at our high school.
It could also be electives, you know, and do you have 7 English electives outside of the cores, or do you have 5? You know, you still have electives,
Good one.
but do you have 7 or 8 versus 4 or 5? Same thing with social studies, sciences, you know, when you look at the cores you have to have, and obviously you need some electives, but we have a lot of electives, you know, so is that something where, and some of them are also only a semester, so you have some play in there with, like you said, you know, it's not happening every semester or every year. But it's not just the academy, but
No,
we have a
it's
lot of
not.
electives as well.
I was using that as an example.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other ways to schedule a high school, which is
Yeah.
one of the reasons that I'm talking to those that don't know, I was an 18-year high school principal. So scheduling high school is substantially different than any other grade level, just because it's complex. You know, there's so many different options for the students that are there. There's even something called arena scheduling, which is a totally different way to go about scheduling, where you set your teachers and then classes fill out, sort of like college. And once they're full, and then you move on. You know, I toyed with that in the school that I ran years ago, where you would have, then you'd have your fixed staffing levels.
Yeah.
And then you just arena schedule it.
I mean, what I will say is none of these options are great. I don't want to reduce high school offerings and all of those things. However, I see our deficits that I feel like we have to look into it to see what would that even look like, and if we did it, what would be the cost savings? If it's only gonna save, I'm not saying it would only save 100,000, but let's say it does only save that. I mean, I think we just need to know more information to know, is it a worthwhile lever?
I do think we should speak to the scheduling, because at first we thought, changing to, you know, we had the idea or the conversation briefly about changing from our, what do you call it? Mr.
AV
Ramos?
block.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Your block over 2 days.
there was some talk, and that we do have a block schedule at the high school, but it's a type of block schedule that's essentially an 8-period day to spread over 2 days. So the way that we schedule it is, it's called an AV alternating block in the business. So they have 4 on one day, 4 on the next. But it really has to do with how much each teacher is teaching each day. When we looked at it, you know, it's equivalent to what other districts have teachers teaching. It's just spread over 2 days. So there's not really anything there other than looking at other options like class sizes or other things we've already mentioned.
I think it's I think it's also a combined lever with retirement. So if we have, so like, I was a high school teacher, I taught 4 different core classes and 1 elective. But then I had a peer and she taught the same elective all day, the same elective. If she retires, maybe we reduce that elective class offering and we reduce a position through that. They have a tendency to be people's passion areas, so it's not necessary that somebody else even wants to pick it up and teach it. Because that was that teacher's like passion area. So like once again, it's the kind of thing that can go together. We're not gonna just say, Mr. Gebauer, you have to cut 4 electives. It could be that things in real time are happening that make you make that decision. It's a possibility.
I think one quick other question, outside of the academies, are there any classes where like if they don't meet, 15 students in that elective, we're not gonna offer it or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, we look at that, when they bring sectioning numbers,
It's in the policy.
and we have policy on it.
Okay.
It's in a policy. Exceptions can be made, but there are some minimum, or I can't think of the number
15.
now, but yeah,
It is
it is
15, yeah.
15,
It is
yeah.
You pulled that out.
No, it's a
Okay.
good pull, 15
Yeah.
is the number.
There are exceptions like the academies. There are some exceptions.
Special education.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
special education is an exception, but in all those cases, we're aware of the numbers. We're aware of those exceptions.
We've kind of talked about those next bullet points. To reduce athletic offerings.
Okay, so on the reducing athletic offerings front, we did some quick reporting and we have $360,000 in our athletics budget for wages and benefits. Benefits meaning your Medicare and your Social Security, those percent benefits that come along with the wage. So $360,000 is the total amount that we pay coaches and assistant coaches at all high school levels to be an athletic coach in our district. Just as like a starting point in your brain of like, okay, let's say we're not doing this. Well, we eliminated athletics altogether, right? Like coaching wise, we'd say $360,000. So if you wanted to think about, okay, what does it look like if we reduced freshman offerings? Like if we reduced all freshman sports, what would that savings be? We would, look at the coaching piece and then your equipment and your uniforms and everything that comes with it, and your transportation, your time clocks and all the things that cost money when you run a sport. You could look at, and we've had previous finance committee conversations about this, if you reduced assistant pay, are they volunteer assistant coaches? So we could run any number of scenarios and stop like that, red light, green light, yellow light. What does that look like for our athletics program?
Yeah, just keep in mind that most of that $360,000 of additional pay is going to existing staff members, teachers. And they're used to that, but just keep that in mind.
So you gave a $360,000 number, and if, let's say we did, it's so weird to say it out loud, but let's say we were eliminate all freshmen, are we talking like a fourth of 360,000?
Well, it's a way to have to look into, but we pulled the 360, the total amounts that we knew, like the extreme version, right, of what that would look like. So it's some smaller amount, maybe it's a quarter, but we'd have to pull what that actually looks like.
I mean, I don't have any figures, but girls soccer team doesn't even have a freshman team, they just have JV and varsity.
Right, yeah, we don't have a
So,
freshman team in
they
law
don't even have a freshman team for you to eliminate, and so I don't even know how many sports even do have freshman teams anymore, they just have JV and varsity.
Having worked in multiple districts, $360,000 is a low number. I had a higher number in a smaller district before coming here,
I just think you said the
context.
total athletic budget was around $1 million.
700 something,
760.
760.
Okay, so it's about 50% is wages and benefits, and the other 50% is just the cost of
Still,
transport.
Transportation is through the roof, and then officials are the other key cost. And then you have your uniform, but you do have uniform rotations, and you can, stretch that out, okay, we're gonna be wearing these
well, they
uniforms.
fundraise.
I was gonna say
Additional
most
years.
schools
Yes, we have-
fundraise for all of it.
I have friends with kids in this district who send me the emails, so they can have new uniforms.
I mean, this, like the others, not ideal, and it doesn't look like it's a big lever, but I do think it's nice to just look at.
When you say the majority of that 360 is their own staff, is that about like, are we talking like 90%? Are we talking
Oh, say that again?
the amount of the wages that are going to our staff versus outside
Oh.
community member coming into
Oh,
the
sure,
coach?
internal coaches and external coaches,
Yes.
basically. I don't know that, we'd have to look into
When
that,
you pull this, yeah, if you could
but
just
we
have
have
that.
that, yep.
I don't know if that would be right, if it's, you're saying, all right, well, it's 2/3 our staff, 1/3 outside, and I don't know if that'd be a really weird setup to say, well, we'll pay our certified staff to coach, but not outside, and
We'd have to run that differently. My list is everybody,
Yeah,
and it doesn't differentiate if you work here.
yeah.
okay.
Anything else to talk about athletic offering? I mean, I guess it wouldn't change though. Do we even, like sporting events and things like that, is there any income that generates from that could then impact, not really of like admissions? It's basically a wash, correct?
Yeah, gate fees, they go back into
The athletics, okay, so that's what keeps the budget to where it's at. Okay, that's what I figured, but just wanted to confirm. Anything else on athletics? Okay. So, positions.
Alright, eliminate or, reduce to any extent regular education assistant positions. So we do have, regular ed educational assistants. A change in this would look like classroom staff or other staff doing more, right? Or support not happening. So if there's a breakout and educational assistant is working with students, maybe that doesn't happen, or the classroom teacher's not doing that. So a lot of this would be back on classroom teachers. It would also mean probably more duties for classroom teachers, more recess, more lunch, I guess you name it, additional duties. So these would go back into essentially
A
classroom
lot
teachers.
of, our school district friends around here have eliminated regular ed positions, and their only educational assistants are special ed, because they're mandatory. And then they have these positions called lunch supervision and recess supervision, and somehow they find people at like $12 an hour to come watch lunch and recess. Apparently Elbrook can do it, that's what they have. They have no regular ed EAs except in 4K and 5K. And everybody else is this other very, very part-time position. Most of our friends in the area, for whatever type of educational assistant they have, they make all of them under 6 hours a day, so they are not benefit eligible at all. So that's another thing that's out there.
How many
This would be a pretty big deal.
How many EAs do we have outside of special?
Like at what levels?
We have better staffing.
Okay.
Mine was by school.
I mean, are they their kids, the EAs are the high school or?
They're, I'd say
Primarily at the
primarily the
elementary,
elementary level, the high
So they're-
school and middle school are more specific.
Okay.
So
Than just like general support.
I'm just going to say that, so like Ben Franklin has 8.7 FTE, full-time equivalent position. So it equals the equivalent of 8.7 people that they have. $15 people.
Total in the district?
No, that's like at Ben
Oh,
Franklin,
at
they
Ben
have
Franklin, 15
15
people.
regular ed assistants.
8.7
But when
FTE
you
is
take all
Sure.
of their hours together to be a full-time equivalent of like 8 hours per
Mhm.
person, it's 8.7, so that's why it's, and then,
And what's Shady Lane, because those are the two littles, right? So you have generally
so.
EAs
Oh,
with your
Shady,
littlest.
one more. We have partner schools together. So they have 6.9 FTE, but they have 11 people. Do you see what I mean? Like it's,
So like
And
not all of them are
Yeah, they're
working
working,
over
like,
6 hours a
0.3s.
day.
so
Right.
obviously we do have a bunch of people that are under 6 hours, but we actually have a considerable amount of people that are at 6 hours or more. And then the high school and the middle school are least. The middle school has 2 people. And then the high school, we just made a bunch of changes.
Like at the high school level, are these the people who are like running study halls or running
Yep,
like
so these
half
people are
lab
actually
or-
all 7 hours and over. He has 8. I'm sorry, 7, he got 1. He has 7 people, but they are actually all at over 7 hours.
And in some cases, it's rather than having a teacher run a study hall,
Yes.
an EA is running a study hall. So
Yes.
it's the more cost efficient version, to do things at the high school level the way that we're using our EA FTE.
So earlier, when you said that the cost of EAs is basically 4-to-1 versus certified
Mhm.
staff, were you talking about the
The
full-time
full-time
equivalent?
equivalent.
Okay, so
So
there's not a
it's,
lot of savings.
so it's really about a 6 to 7 hour EA, you need about 4. Could be 3, could be 5, depending on how much they make, but it's about 4. So in the past, like at the middle school and the high school, Mr. Gebauer did it with special ed EAs. He actually took 4 special ed EA positions, which are hard to fill at the high school level. And he turned it into a special ed teacher,
I see.
to help reduce the caseload since they weren't actually getting great applicants to be special ed EAs at the high school. He converted, so they have had that option to do.
Yeah, we brought that up a couple years ago when we were looking at our numbers of EAs and we went to the principals and said, and I had done this at another district and said, it's not that we don't need services, but somebody who's a teacher, a certified teacher, for the same cost, it would be 1 person instead of 3. So we've done that in some cases and from an educational and a pedagogical perspective, it makes sense. But what I would say about the EA is, if I could recommend a red light anywhere,
It seems like a red.
that I think we should actually lean in to whatever positions or EAs that we have in the district and look at their health insurance and look at their benefits and try to look at equality with benefits and that's what we, with our entire support staff, so non-certified staff, we ought to look at the benefit. I recommend that we look at the benefits of all of our staff, not just certified staff, and say, okay, where are the inequalities here that we know exist, meaning they do exist, and how do we go about structuring, fixing that? So I actually don't, this is just me, EAs do a lot of great work in all of our buildings, and I think we more ought to be looking about how to support them with our benefit structure, the way that some of our partner schools and neighboring schools around us do. But
Are EAs easy our position to fill?
Special ed harder than regular ed.
yeah,
Of course.
So we have,
and it would be easier with a more robust benefit structure.
yeah,
They pay
For-
quite a bit.
So
You
we
said
should-
that they pay like half their salary in benefits.
That's
yeah,
some,
yeah,
yes.
it's about half their salary and
Yes.
benefits for the
I
average.
think with the
Person.
value they add in supporting teachers, I personally don't think it's worthwhile to.
So we
But-
have reduced over time, look at Julie and all her history in this chart. So in 2016-17 school year, we had the FTE equivalent of, I'll say 44, cause it's 43.91, 44. And now for this school year, we have the FTE equivalent of 36. So each year, there's one year that went up, but other than that, it seems like it's been kind of slowly reducing over time. So same thing with special ed. 2016-17 was 42 FTE equivalent, and now it's 33. But we actually have less special ed EAs than we do regular EAs. I will say that is a little lopsided to have your FTE percentage higher in your regular ed than your special ed, but they're getting closer.
Anyone else have anything to discuss about EAs? Increasing staff pay.
Alright, so as we've talked about many times, staff make up the majority of our budget, so when we project in the 5-year forecast, what's included or assumed is a 3% CPI increase. Now, I mean, CPI is not going down anymore like it had been, it's, trending back up now, so I almost wonder, is 3% enough in the 5-year forecast? But anytime, obviously, we increase that bucket, our total increases. So if you didn't increase, if you took a look at the 5-year forecast and you didn't increase by 3%, you're probably bettering your forecast by 800,000 potentially. So those are big numbers. I mean, you could say it's an equivalent of, reducing a significant number of positions. They have the same exact impact. They reduce the base building portion of our budget.
Reduce 10 or freeze all.
And I know we're discussing a lot of things, a lot of difficult things. Just my continuing recommendation to the board is CPI for all staff. In the 2016s.
So to that tune.
It's like if you were going to enter into a contract that started November 1st, it would be 2.84% right now. And sometime at the end of January, we will know what July 1 contracts are. But so far, it's on the rise. It's making some big jumps,
Very tightly tied to fuel prices.
So this isn't really math, but it's jumping by significant amounts here. So that's why Caitlin's people are projecting more, but you can go, if you Google WERC space CPI, you will click on a chart and it will show you CPI to the dawn of CPI time in Wisconsin.
Yep, and
This is
those are
what we
numbers
all
that we
use.
look at.
This is what the public sector in Wisconsin uses. So if you Google WERC and then space CPI, the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission, WERC. So you can track it. Every month comes out that next bargaining month's number. We should see July sometime at the end of January pop up on there.
So big picture on this one is just reducing staff and reducing pay or pay increases or freezing pay have the same exact impact.
Do you have anything else on?
Yeah, have you guys looked into I think some other districts around the area, in Wisconsin, I don't know if they're close, are looking at increasing days for 8 minutes every day and somehow that does something?
There was a school district, Burlington, that actually, as one of their cost-saving measures, reduced their school year and therefore reduced all contracts to the same tune, the same number of days. And so contracts were reduced. It wasn't like they kept the contract and just said, now instead of 195 days, you're at 190. They actually reduced, they took the daily rate and said, times however many days the new contract is, so.
Their salary went down by that
Salary
many
went down.
days worth of work. I guess you technically are working less days and it's usually still an 8-hour
Oh, so the money was saved through
Yes,
staff pay,
yes,
not through like
no.
transportation
No.
and utilities?
Transportation is negligible on a couple days. We looked at it when we were thinking about getting a waiver to start school a week early.
Yeah.
We needed our transportation number to be big, it was like $1,000. So it wasn't enough. So if you can cut out 3 or 5 days of school, your transportation costs are next to nothing that you're saving. What you're doing is you're reducing everybody's pay by that many days. That's what happens. And quite honestly, it's your 10-month staff who are having their pay changed because year-round staff are still working 260 or 61 days. So that's how they save the money.
Interesting.
Going back to class sizes, what numbers are we talking about roughly? And what did the board have in mind when it set certain guidelines?
Oh, yeah, so we have, I don't have that on my sheet, and I don't know, I have it right here, okay, optimal ranges. So the board set this in 2017, so we've been using the same ranges, for budget planning and staff planning. So 4K is 20 to 23. 5K through second grade is 22 to 25. Third through fifth is 25 to 27. And 6th through 12th is 25 to 30 plus. So seriously, having partner schools makes this a heck of a lot more efficient. Like, this is where we see it, is when because we hit these targets every single time. 98% of the time, because we have so many more students in that building that we can, add a section and we're still within there. Or if we're, we can reduce a section and we're at the top of the range now. So we are within here. I mean, again, like if Ben Franklin at 4K doesn't fill up over the summer, that one's gonna be lower than our range. But we are generally always within here, especially at elementary level. The and middle school, the high school is where we don't always see reaching that
25,
range.
25.
High school's below 25, right?
Is it better for educational outcomes?
There's clear evidence that it is.
Just joking.
No, it's a fair
That's like the
question, but I mean, like they've shown the
But I think it's more
our high
important.
school is performing over the 3 years. They've made improvements every year to the point, and their growth rates as well. I mean, they're being recognized, rightfully so, on the state level as high growth in some of those areas. So, it's not just, A's and B's and ACTs and all that. Growth is what we're looking for in education, and they're a state leader. So I think the evidence at the high school, and that's the hard part of the discussion, is the answer to your question is yes, based on existing data in our high school.
I think the data says it's more important in your early grades, in
Absolutely.
smaller class sizes.
Absolutely.
That's why high schools,
I would
middle
agree.
and high schools traditionally over history have had more kids in them than your little ones. So
Totally agree.
every time a class is smaller, it's better for student academic outcomes because the teacher has more time to focus on those students. But it's probably more critical in kindergarten through second grade than it is for juniors and seniors in high school.
When I was teaching, and this is a couple decades ago now, I had a class of almost 40, but then I had a specialty class of 14. So it was AP government and then general US history for the class of 40. But teaching those two classes, it is a totally different kind of teaching. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, but you are bringing up a good point. If we pull some of these levers, it could impact the quality of our schools and what offerings we have, which then could also impact if we're utilizing the open enrollment.
I mean, 10 across the district though is not increasing high school from 21 to 32
Well, yeah,
in a classroom, especially if it's spread out across the schools and district office. it's not adding like 10 kids to each high school
I
class.
get that.
It's,
I do think it's wild though, like, so, like just where we're at in education, I guess, that like, right, like this is literally, we're talking about a school district. And the list of reductions is getting rid of things that either support students, class offerings, class sizes, their professional educators, like the majority of that list is like literally education.
yes.
Like, the fact that we're in this place is awful. And so I see that like, right, this is a list of, you know, it's not a mutually exclusive, it's not like saying like we're gonna do all the bullet points, but this is like the reductions conversation. And like a couple weeks ago was like a referendum conversation. I think what's most important right now in everything is like, surprise, surprise, educating the community about like, this is the realities, that this isn't just like, oh shoot, we missed our payments and we missed our bills, so we're screwed. This is like 17 years of micro cuts, or whatever we wanna call them, 17 years of this that's led us to this. And I'll just continue to say that I really don't believe the majority or people who are involved in paying attention even understand that we're to this place. And I'm not faulting anybody, you know, like I'm not finger pointing or blaming anyone for that. But I would really like to see moving forward, like real concerted efforts for us to educate the community about kind of what we're up against. That I don't feel like, right, I'm an elected person on a board. I feel like I need to hear from community, like what's realistic to you? Are you more like, yeah, let's reduce? Or are you more like, oh, I get it, let's referendum? Or option C, I don't know, you know, but like that's what's on my mind right now. So that's why I always lean towards how can we educate the community, figure out more, hear from them, because ultimately the community will make at least one of the choices, you know, if it's referendum. And then if they don't, like, this will impact, if we make all these reductions, will impact, even, right, it has a ripple effect into like the operations of the community even too. So that's why I'm really big on like, meaning like the operations of like, you know, will housing values go down? Will, you know, like it impacts either way, the community. So I'm really big on like, let's keep educating the community. I think these conversations are important for the 6 people that are watching, but like what else can we do, right? To do that, and I don't know
I mean, I do think we need some sort of communication plan of like the realities that we're in. I don't know if we have any communications expert in the district or something that we can leverage, but I do think this list is, none of these options look like ideal things that we want to do. I know a lot of work has been done to make our district as lean as we can be, to the point that now we are impacting, you know, what's hitting education. So I'd love to see, you know, what more can we do for education, communication about our realities. I know even in the past, like we used to get, there was like a packet or something that even like came in the mail. Like we know not everyone's gonna go on social media. We know, you know, I don't know, just look at different ways that we can try to get the realities of where we're at and kind of see what does the community say is a direction they wanna go.
There's companies that do this, like School Perceptions, there's others that we haven't talked about before. That one of the things that these places and these companies are gonna say is, part of it is active surveys and exactly what is just being talked about, you know, by both here. But they have to mention and put questions out there that might be uncomfortable questions. You know,
We're in an
I'm not gonna
uncomfortable
suggest-
situation.
I'm not gonna suggest what those questions are, but
Well, we're in an uncomfortable
in order to get
situation.
feedback and the feedback that you're looking for,
No, I know.
we need to put out information
Yeah.
in surveys and then feedback loops that are, structured, to do that. Sorry.
Oh, we used to have a director of communications, she was downsized. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
We used to have a whole committee that,
Mhm.
one of the committees that we had was the communications committee.
I didn't know, I
So-
didn't think we had a communications person anymore, and I didn't know
But
anyone's owning it,
that
but
person got downsized a while ago.
Every year,
because
one or
we're
two
cutting,
positions
you
in
know.
DO have been cut.
And there's also, like to run a school district, I get it, I get you, like, everybody says we need, more teachers facing, student-facing teachers being in the classroom to do teaching, and that's what we're here for. But a district doesn't run without administrative staff, you have to have HR, you have to have a finance person, you have to have people that are in charge of curriculum, you have to, again, special ed, there's rules and regulations, and teachers can't suspend a student. So if kids get into a fight, teachers have to keep teaching, but you have to have administrators that do all of these things that the state and the US government has mandated that school districts are required to do. So there's like a point where I get it, like in many places, there are too many, administrators that aren't actually teaching the kids, but like, we're to the point where, again, I'd love to have more teachers, but like, you can't have no district office staff, you can't have no administrators, and like, we've, over the course of a couple of years, have downsized as many of them as we can to keep it at a bare minimum, again, to get to this
And
point.
it's happening next year, more here.
doesn't mean that if you eliminate a position, the work doesn't go away, someone has to own it.
Oh, no, it didn't go away.
It doesn't go away. We're
Yeah.
We've already got
downsizing,
people.
I'm feeling every
going
minute
into
losing my
job
HR person.
services.
no, we're
So we're
downsizing
teachers, yeah.
$250,000 in the 26-27 out of the central office alone.
I mean, it's
So-
across
Yeah.
all employees,
Hitting
if
everyone.
you're eliminating it, whether you're eliminating an EA or a district office, the work doesn't just magically disappear, so. Do we have anything else on long-term financial planning? We've had a lot of discussion,
Just one thing, the slide we've been looking at, I'm taking a look at it, and I don't see that it even adds up to the $4.1 million deficit we're projecting.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, so we are still like, even with these difficult things, with 10 certified staff on here as a reduction, that accounts for us using some of these one-time funds to get by. That does not create a solution for the long term.
For
Like,
fun.
we would be at, we would be at way more than 10 certified staff if we were solving this gap as it exists right now into 28, 29 after we use our one-time funds.
Can you say that one more time?
In the scenario that we listed here with these numbers, which aren't, they're more so just to get your heads wrapped around like what could this look like in terms of how many people, how many reductions, how many open enrollment seats would we even need to get there?
So-
Even as it's laid out right here, we have to be using one-time funds to balance 27, 28, and then we have way more challenging conversations ahead of us again for 28, 29.
And the reason this slide is separate from the other ones, this is recurring dollars on the
Right.
screen right here. So that's what we really want to build into solving the long-term issue, is you have 3 million-ish of recurring savings sitting on this slide. But the slide right before this is one-time money. So essentially what Caitlin is saying, and which is true for all school districts, is we wanna slow the use of the one-time money, because once if we put all that one-time money into the 27, 28, it just makes the $4 million issue in 28, 29, 7 million, so you wanna meter the use of it. And the last slide, this is where, well, it's difficult to talk about, but districts in the position that we're in, like the podcast talks about, that this is what you look for because it's every year savings. it's not just $1 million this year, it's $1 million next year, when those, or in 2 years, or it's $3 million over 3 years. You know, it's $5 million over 5 years. For each one of those listed, it's multiplied by however many years, as long as, you know, you don't. The part with open enrollment is you gotta keep them for that to be, you know,
Yeah.
extrapolated. That's the hard thing that we're finding is, you know, we wanna make that sustainable, which we have a plan for, we've talked about it. But retiree attrition savings, that's every year's savings. You know, because we've built it in, we've baked it into the staffing hires for it to be that way. So the fact that we're showing $500,000 this year and next year, that's every year going out. You know, because we've made that long-term decision. So the money on the other page, yeah, I mean, we have one-time funds, we're 30% fund balance-ish. We have 21 million in fund balance, so we're financially solid. Our short-term financial outlook is very good for the short term. We're already balanced. We're gonna show you that in the next presentation, or this next third presentation, the preliminary budget and tax levy. We're projecting a balanced budget. So all of these things, they're really 27, 28.
So when you say we're good in the short term, you mean through 26, 27?
Yes, and which is also the end of the current biennial budget. So the state, you know, I mean, they do budgets every 2 years. We're in the middle of that, so we have 1 more year of that. So when I say short term, we don't know what the new governor and whoever's newly elected in the assembly and the state senate, we don't know what kind of deal they're gonna make.
Right.
You know, for special education money and all money. You know, that is a variable that's hanging out there. It's not a variable for the 26, 27. That's why I keep saying, because we know those dollars. We're solid on that. But the 27, 28, there's a substantial lot of variables, including the governor's election and all the different elections about what is the next biennium budget gonna look like. I wanna know too.
Just a note, when we look at this 5-year budget forecast, the years that are blocked in the same color are the years of biennium. So the next biennium is the 27, 29, it's always the odd years, biennium, and then 29, 31 biennium. So I find that helpful visually for myself when I'm like, okay, what are the years of it? So just a note.
Anything else on this before we move to the next discussion item? Alright, we can move to long-term facility planning.
And I hit back to, oh wait, I think I can hit back. Oh no, I can't. Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna go back to 26. Okay, so this promises to be a much shorter conversation. Essentially, the last time our district completed a facilities assessment, a full long-range facilities assessment with a partner, not just our own 10-year capital improvement plan, but the full assessment, and here's an example of one school's assessment, was in 2014. And so this is on our website, this is Valley View. The page I always scroll down to and live by, and now these graphs are prettier these days, show the anticipated lifespan of all the mechanicals within our building. And the goal generally in this graph is the expected lifespan. The red is how old our units are. So it goes through, here's exterior, then there's interior with walls, and then we get to plumbing. And when we talk about Valley View being one of our oldest buildings or most in need of most work, generally it's like the plumbing within Valley View. So for example, copper water piping is, or sorry, not that one. The ones where the red is exceeding the gold is galvanized piping. That's a pricey update, and that's an area where Valley View is in need of more work than under other buildings. So what we are recommending is that we go to a request for proposal or RFP for a facilities planning process. Generally, that's an architect who's gonna update this plan and do it across all of our buildings so that we can get an updated facilities assessment to know where our buildings are at, to know whether we're continuing to invest in these buildings. I think about it very much
corresponding to the school closure conversation, like, is there a building that even makes sense? Or are they all in a similar boat? Like, if one is exceedingly more expensive to repair or to, update piping or whatever it is than others, that facilities assessment helps us know that and know it in, in a factual way. It's generally school districts update these plans every 5 to 10 years, so we're at year 12, so it makes sense for us to do so,
And this is on our strategic plan,
yes.
something we should do, meaning the RFP doesn't cost any money to go to an RFP. So once we would receive those proposals back, that would come to the board for you to consider, because there would be a dollar amount with that, correct?
Yes, exactly. So this piece is just a discussion item, just informational. There doesn't have to be any action on this. We would kind of proceed with an RFP process, and then that the board would approve the selected partner to go through the facilities assessment with.
And the RFP is only for long-term facility planning, to be clear. So the RFP, long-term facility planning, period.
This.
Yep, so it's updating essentially this document, which exists for all of our buildings, the new version of it. And this is very common
That was from
every
2014.
5 to 10 years in school.
It seems like we probably should do it.
And there's no harm in just going through the RFP process. Like there's
Yeah.
there's no payment to just go through an RFP
Yep.
process. I think it makes a lot of sense for us. And then we would come back to the board with, at the result of that RFP, what the chosen recommended vendor would be.
So just based on this discussion or this item just being up, we would come back to a future board meeting and say, remember the RFPs we talked about? Long-term facility planning, which is all that we're talking about. Here's what these companies can do, here's what it'll cost, and then there'll be an action item at that.
Okay.
Ballpark?
I talked to our owner's rep, Building Solutions, and his ballpark was 30 to 50,000.
Okay.
We do have included in our budget 150,000 to address anything that comes through this process. So, anytime you talk about surveys or facility assessment, facility surveys, comes with a cost. So we have that included in our budget, anticipating needs in these conversations this year.
So surveys, it would be like a school perception.
Yes. Or like us, enrollment study. If we were looking at facility assessment, generally this come with an enrollment study.
Right.
If that's a different partner, there's a few companies, consultants in the state of Wisconsin that are known for those and come highly recommended, but we could look at any type of combination of these assessments together, so my recommendation would probably be to do an enrollment study with a facility study, because then we already have the capacity from this most recent study, and it's not starting from scratch, like we have this, so they're not deleting this and starting over, we are just building on top of this, so the capacity has not changed within our buildings, right, like we haven't done renovations to change classroom sizes physically, and capacities was included in this most recent, in the 2014 study, so this is just refreshing, it's not scrapping this all together, it's just refreshing this, re-upping this study.
Get another agenda item, but what do you gain from doing a enrollment study in conjunction with this that you haven't kind of already told us with regards to anticipated class sizes enrollment over time, like what?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, it's really hard to know like who's not in our buildings yet, so it's really birth rates and the study of, 0 to 4, ages 0 to 4.
Interesting.
It's very good information, and I think the more data we can give the board is the same data we give the community to help make an informed decision. It might say that 80% of our students in the next 5 to 10 years are gonna be on the Riverside side. It might not say that at all. We already see it tilting that way a little, but the enrollment study will help us get a better
Right,
gauge of that.
and it's like, on that note, it's housing turnover, so where, like, it's like really deep, it's like where are generationally, who's living where, and then what is that housing turnover expected to be based on data that I couldn't do.
This was always something that was gonna come up this year, meaning we're in the middle of our strategic plan, 24 to 29 strategic plan. This is something we talked about in the strategic planning process, and that the community had input about wanting this already.
And when we look at our 10-year plan, our CIP, that's all the dollars in there,
those are our best estimate. This re-ups those with a, professional contractor to say, yes, we're on track, in terms of our estimates, or
Or no, we're way up.
no, we're not.
2/3 of that plan is deferred at this point anyway, so.
Or more.
Anything else that you need from us on this?
Okay.
Then I think we can move to the preliminary budget.
Okay, so this is just 26-27. So we spent a lot of time talking about future years, this is just 26-27. You should have your packet, and it's also, you still have to attach it, so I'll attach it, tomorrow morning, so that's available for the public as well. So this packet is what we will bring to the full board on June 8th for discussion and action. It's the same exact packet we've brought over the years. I'll just point a few things out on page 4. This is the piece that's actually approved by the board, so the rest of the packet is supplemental. DPI requires a budget approval and publication in this format. So this is the page 4, that is actually approved by the board. It goes fund by fund, generally grouping the funds, so general fund is fund 10, special projects are both 21 and 27, debt service funds are 38 and 39, for us that only means 39. Capital projects fund are the 40s, the dollars that you see, so that's lines 27 through 31 on page 4. Those are existing dollars from prior referenda that are just essentially sitting available, and then also our $100 in Fund 46, which we still have a couple years on our timer left. And so on and so forth. So the few things I'll point out, if you look at on page 4, lines 11 and 16, you'll see our revenues for Fund 10 and our expenditures for Fund 10. And those two numbers are exactly the same, so that represents a balanced budget. Same thing in the special projects fund, so lines 20 and 21 represents our total revenues and total expenditures across. The majority of that is Fund 27, small little portion under $1 million is Fund 21. Fund 21 is student activities. In the debt service funds, we only have Fund 39 left, so you're seeing our revenues, which is our tax levy for Fund 39, and our expenditures, which is our regular principal and interest debt payments. There's food service in there, so you can see our revenues and expenditures with our food service program. That's an area that we are continuing to work towards. It's our own little business within our own school district that we work to, not have. If we exceed our fund balance in food service, that results in a transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 50. So we work to obviously avoid that and maintain our business within Fund 50 as a self-sustaining operation. Community service fund is Fund 80. You'll see lines 40 and 41 represent the revenues and expenditures there. Line 41 with the expenditures, you're gonna see them really hop around. And so that represents the construction project, the building of the new community center. So 24-25, there was some building that took place that actually took place during that fiscal year. A lot of it happened in the summer of 2025, like July and August, early in the summer. So the majority of that construction project hit the books in 25-26, which is why you're seeing such a huge expense number. And 26-27 is when we get back to normal, if you will, in Fund 80. So we, once again now are seeing a balanced budget in Fund 80 with 3.5 million, both revenues and expenditures. So again, kind of its own operation within our school district. As you look down on the page, we have all funds, which is, I always say, kind of a silly representation of numbers because we function entirely separately. Our fund accounting is entirely separate, but we do have here the total funds, expenditures, and the difference from the prior year. And then the very bottom, you're seeing our total levy. So a projected levy increase of just under 1%, so 0.99% increase from the prior year. So we maintain that relatively flat levy of under 40 million where we've been hovering for over a decade now. So this is the page that the board would actually approve on June 8th. And then as you go through section 1 and supplemental information starting on page 5, gets more specific into the tax levy. Stop me at any time if you have questions, I'll just kind of keep going. But the tax levy, you can see the breakdown between the general fund in Fund 10, and then debt service in Fund 39, and community service in Fund 80. You'll see again there where we're getting kind of back to normal with the Fund 39 levy, the debt service levy, and the community service levy. Again, the community center project is finished in terms of our levy, so that's no longer included in our Fund 80 levy. And then you can see again the total levy change over the years. If the state continues to not fund the equalization aid bucket, this levy number will increase in the future. We've been able to avoid the increases that many school districts are seeing, but that won't be the case going forward if the state continues to underfund or not increase that equalization aid category, because essentially an increase to aid is a reduction in taxes. There's more information there representing what this mill rate looks like. Oh, I should say the mill rate of projected, because this is a preliminary budget, projected mill rate of $6.29, so a decrease of just under 1% for the mill rate for next year. And then we just use an example of what does that look like on an average $350,000 home. You just take 6.29 times 350, and that equals the school district portion of taxes on a tax bill. So anybody could just do their own math on what do you assume your assessed value, or sorry, I should say your equalized value will be on your home. And then we have fund balances listed there by fund, and then the graphs on the bottom. As you move through the pages, we then go into greater detail by fund. So we start with Fund 10 and list revenues, and then a breakdown of the different types of revenues. So property taxes, local sources, inter-district payments. We call these revenues by source, and then on the expenditure side by object. That's the accounting dimension that we're grouping in this report. And as you go through, you'll see each of the funds represented. So we have Fund 10. One thing I wanted to point out, page 7 is Fund 10 expenditures. The line 60, pupil and employee travel, this continues to be an increasing cost in our budget and all school districts. So not only do we have our third year of stacked increases for transportation, so the increase in 26, 27 in our transportation project is 12%. Then we go down to a CPI increase going forward, but we also have the cost of fuel on top of that. So that is, I think we're feeling that as well. Another piece I wanted to show is on page 9, special education, so Fund 27. The impact of the special ed reimbursement rate. So you can see this in both lines 3 and line 10. Line 3 is the special education revenue, and you can see how in 25-26 we experienced that nice jump from the prior year. That was when the state invested, we got up to 42%, which is really 35, but likely 38%, but that was from about 30%. So when we have that additional revenue, that's what you're seeing in line 3, that results in a reduction in our transfer from Fund 10 or the general operating fund. So in line 10, you can see from going from 24-25, 25-26, we had less money significantly that we had to transfer from our general operating fund to Fund 27. If the state continues to fund special ed at a higher rate, we'll continue to see that revenue increase, and then our transfer not be as high of an increase each year, or hopefully maybe one day decrease again, which gives more money back into the general fund. And then once again on the same page, page 9, we have fuel again, so our transportation costs are, there's a portion of that that's in the special ed as well. I could keep going. Any specific questions or things you wanted to take a look at? I should say, this is a reflection of everything we've been talking about over the last many, many months. So it's just in a new format instead of the reduction sheet that we've been looking at. It's essentially all of Skyward and now reported in a different way that you're used to seeing, but same numbers. And then what would happen is June 8th is this we review this with the full board and also have approval. And then at the annual meeting, which is September 14th this year, we do a budget hearing with using this same exact budget for the community to
And then there's final approval in October.
in October, yeah. So we get all of our final budget factors in October 1st through the 15th, and then we're getting those final factors, which is why this is just a preliminary budget, and you'll see, projected. I use that word all the time, because right now this is just preliminary, projected, until October when it's our final budget.
Any questions
Yes.
on that item?
Oh, you know what, I had one last one,
Oh,
let's the
sorry.
very last page. This is a new section for us, page 16. The state does not require us to report on Fund 73, but we included it in our supplemental piece. It won't be ever on the DPI page, but this is a new page for us, because we are now using the 400,000 of the Fund 73, the OPEB trust, the post-employment benefit dollars. This is where you're seeing that reflected in our budget. So $400,000 here, which is a reduction of that line item within the Fund 10 budget.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
We are good to move on to item D, which is student fees, meal fees, and facility rental fees.
Okay, so student fees, I'll start with. You'll see just in yellow are the recommended increases. I don't have the yellow items, the increases from last year in yellow, so just looking at 26, 27 in the yellow, but note there were some increases, for example, in the career and tech ed materials. That fee was increased by $10 last year. We did not touch the fine arts, and this year that is the recommendation, is to increase that fee by the $10 as well. And then, so there's no other recommendations for the general school registration fees. And then meal fees, we continue to see meal prices increase, and that impacts our food service program, milk specifically. So there's just a nickel increase in the milk recommendation, and then also for the lunches, a quarter increase for each. But not on the breakfast side, just on the lunch side is the recommendation at this point. And that keeps us within the average in our area. So those are the yellows. I did put athletics in gray because we haven't increased, you can see over the years, we have not increased our athletic fees in a number of years. Actually, the first year on here was the first year that they went up, so the 18-19 year. And we are at the top, actually I should say in 24-25, I don't have a recent comp study, which we can get for athletics. But I think this is an area that we have to study for the next year, but we'll take a longer time span to do so and more conversations with the board, because we are, at least in 24-25, at the top of our peers in terms of the athletic fee. So even though we increased it so many years ago, we still, in the year 24-25, at $165, we're the most expensive fee for athletics in our area. So we'll study that, we'll bring that forward, and it won't just be the May conversation, we'll probably have a few conversations sitting up to that with more information. So same thing with the fees, they would come to the June 8th meeting for discussion and action. Oh, and then, sorry, on the facility side, that's school fees, we did an extensive study the prior year and increased all fees by percentages the prior year, so this year there's no recommended increases on the facility fee side.
Did that change to not having a max for a
Oh,
group? Did that have a?
I'm really glad you said that, because I forgot to say that item, because that's in yellow. Back to the first document on the facility fees. Activity clubs, right now we have a $20 fee that is an unlimited fee. Meaning a student, not a family, a student pays it one time and can sign up for as many clubs or activities as they want. The recommendation is to remove the cap. We have about a third of our students who take more than one. So this would affect about a third of our families, 6 through 12. that take more than one or participate in more than one club or activity. Does that make sense?
So it would be $20 per club.
Yes, instead of $20 unlimited.
I think Jesse was asking about,
I was asking about,
Oh, sorry.
because, right, sorry,
because last year
last year with the rental fees,
it was
there
no
used to be
longer
the, if
capped.
you hit like,
Oh, that
if
cap,
you paid
yes.
so much, then you just got to use the gym unlimited without paying any more money.
And that changed.
it changed last year. Yes, so that
What
is
did we
still
see?
existing.
Okay, and did we see any drastic changes in usage or anything from that?
Not to my knowledge.
Pretty consistent, okay.
They're just paying to use it past the point where they would have been capped before.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that's,
Just out of curiosity, and maybe you said it and I missed it, and I apologize, but for the fine arts fee, was this an arbitrary $10 increase or like why $10?
Yeah, so last year when we had the $10 increase for career and tech ed, we worked through the, how many students had registered and what would that increase be within the budget. So these are areas where their department budget is not sustaining the needs of the materials. And so the $10 there essentially kept them like a break even.
Okay.
So that's the goal is the same results with the fine arts.
And so that's the fee that that $35 from the student goes directly to the fine arts grade 6 to 12.
Exactly. It funds the department budget. And it's not the whole department budget, it's a portion of the department budget.
to go back to the activity club fee,
Mm-hmm.
I see like for athletics, and then there's other things on here where it's basically like, well, if you do 4, you're maxed out. It looks like that's just for sports. Would you do something similar there, or like, I guess I don't know, like,
Oh,
Our-
for family, like a four, like,
yes,
okay.
or you're saying just like, I guess I don't have a good concept of like, do we have like a minority of the students that are in 8 different clubs and activities that are using the majority of the resources, you know, like, to make it some equitable
Yeah,
and
I
financially
think we have
feasible
to
thing for
pull some data, but we
families.
could do that and then come on June 8th with what that would look like.
Okay.
And making it a max for per family.
And obviously like the registration for high school, like $165 to play sports in high school, which is not changing. So I appreciate that that's 8 times the activity fee, but especially if you have 2 or 3 kids, like that could add up pretty quickly.
Yep, we'll dig into what that would look like and then bring that to June 8th.
I have questions about these. Okay, I think we are to E, the open enrollment audit.
Okay, so each year, the open enrollment period is the same across the state of Wisconsin, where families are applying for open enrollment. This year was February 2nd, because February 1st is the weekend, February 2nd through the end of April, April 30th. And so this is just simply a report on the applications that we've received, where those students are living in terms of their resident district, so the open enrollment in applications that we got. These are where our families are applying from. You can see obviously the biggest resident school district is Milwaukee, so 85% of our open enrollment in applications come from Milwaukee, and then the other is really just a small smattering, with the second highest being Brown Deer at 4% of our open enrollment in applications. And the second page of this is our open enrollment out application. So for open enrolled out students, we are the resident district, and these are students who are applying to attend a different school district for any number of reasons, and so you can see where those students are applying to. So the highest open enroll out application is to Hamilton, followed by Elmbrook. next year we can put these in order by percentages. And then Milwaukee.
Is there a number associated to or with open enrollment to like online schooling?
Some of those are,
Yeah.
like Northern Ozaki,
Okay.
for example, that's one, and
Merrill,
Merrill is one, but also
Farland.
and
Two Rivers.
one up next to my old district.
Probably the ones that are not
Yeah.
within driving,
Really close.
easy driving distance. And how many, I know we opened 21 open enrollment
Yes,
seats.
okay,
How
so I have an
many do we
update.
have?
As of this morning, we have 21 accepted.
Oh,
So the exciting thing about that, well, obviously it's earlier in the game for everybody, so it's, should present a smoother transition, excuse me, for our ninth graders. We also, this year, because it was this early in the process, we were able to get our students an opportunity to take our new open enrollment old students, the high school sneak peek class, which is a summer school class. So it's part of the fall's summer academy. And it's outside of the normal summer school enrollment period, but obviously this is summer school's our own operation, and this is a beneficial program for our school district to help these students succeed. So it benefits everybody, we figured out a way to work around it for students for all of these new incoming ninth graders to attend the high school sneak peek if they're interested. So all of our regular ninth graders have the opportunity to attend. It's 3 days of any of the weeks of summer school. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it runs, there's 4 times it runs, so students could attend any of the 4. And so that communication is going out to all of these families as well, so they have an opportunity to sign up. As just one more of those supports to be successful.
do we put, of those that we didn't accept, do we have like a wait list of who maybe are our next like 10 choices in the event that
Yes,
something happens
Yes,
over
so
the
we have
summer so
to-
we can still fill?
yep, absolutely, so we keep that wait list, we're required to keep that wait list, so we, shortly, I think it was the next day after April 30th, when the portal closed, we had our lottery day, where we went through and every single applicant was numbered essentially via a random lottery, and then we go through that list. And right now, we only went through the ninth grade list, so every family gets a communication, but we only went through the ninth grade list, the first 21 seats, they got the offer, and then it wasn't the first 21 that accepted, so a couple of them, their sibling wasn't here, so they declined, or maybe they already got accepted to another school district, or they were a special ed seat, and we did not have any special ed seats. So we definitely had less rejections than we did last year when we were doing this in July and August. So we were just doing it the normal timeline that we had very few, or we had to like move on to the next one. But we'll keep that going, and if any of the 21 who, are still working through like doing the full registration process and then registering for their classes at the high school, if at any time they decline their seat, then we just go back to the next one.
And I am very positive and encouraged about the system that's been put in place, having done this once last year and increased the numbers. So we look forward to reporting out on that. That's what we're doing.
So then I think we are to the staffing update.
So this is the same document, but on both ends of people resigning and people filling, that's where you'll see the real updates. So at the top are the new FTE additions to the district, and all but one is filled. The last one's kind of an anomaly. We had a high school teacher transfer to that middle school additional FTE, and then they resigned to move up. So now it's reopened again. So otherwise, we were originally fully hired for all of our new additions, and then as you look down, in alphabetical order on the left are all the folks who have resigned or retired. It includes administrators as well. And then you can see kind of the status of where we are in the process, and then on the far right, the with people who have said yes and actually signed a contract. And that goes on to my computer disagrees.
Of the ones that are like either to be posted or posted, do you feel confident we'll be able to fill those all
Oh, yeah,
easily?
it's still really early.
It's very early.
I figured.
I mean, teachers don't have to return a signed contract until June 15th. And then, we, along with almost every other school district, if you leave your school district and have liquidated damages to break your contract after June 15th, we pay it. I mean, up to an amount, we haven't had anybody have a crazy amount yet, but we will help you break your contract like every other school district helps you break your contract. We have discussed this as like, are we really doing anything here? Or are we just all paying each other money when a teacher breaks their contract? But nonetheless,
That is
contracts have
currently what everybody is saying.
contracts have liquidated damages, cause you can't, well, I mean, technically, you can say no to someone breaking their contract. But we don't do that, that feels ridiculous to me, but you can technically force someone to remain under contract, but I don't think it makes sense to have somebody who wants to leave you stay with you. But some school districts do it, and they usually make the news when they do. And then you can see the, where we added, a little bit of time to part-time folks, for various things, and then the red are, reductions. So those are usually small, FTE amounts that are reduced from a person's, FTE total. And then as you keep going down, the positions that were eliminated, the FTE that was reduced in the district, and the person who was in that position. And once again, these were all through attrition. We had no teacher non-renewals for any reason, be it operational or performance for the end of this year and the next year. So those were all through attritions, and then the last person on there you can see, that's the person that we picked to be our new middle school EP. So his position was a reduction at the high school, because they did originally need to reduce a position.
So how on the sheet do you write, like, if there's a reduction of like a grade level, like in first grade, but then that person just goes to like where it increases for second grader? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
We have that.
So we have that internally.
Oh, okay. So like
well-
that's not marked as a reduction,
No.
but it is marked as an addition?
So it'll be, well, actually, we really haven't had any switches. So we've actually had, so when we've had to reduce, like at the elementaries, we did it, like we didn't have enough enrollment. We needed to cut a section of fifth grade at Valley, and then we had a retirement.
So they worked out, oddly enough, in the exact right places.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like it should be getting jinxed soon, but
But if you had the ad, it would be, if it was an actual ad.
so then up at the top. So Riverside, if you can see, it was filled via, we were adding a fifth grade at Riverside. That person,
I see, so you write it there.
yeah, so it goes up
Yeah.
there.
So because there was a reduction where that teacher was.
So Allie already works at Riverside. She taught a different grade this year. She's gonna teach fifth grade next year. So that's something the principal has a conversation with their team, to decide who's moving. So in the bigger green box, when you see the hiring status, it could say reduction, it could say transfer,
Okay.
so it could be ads, but it also could be within here. Like this second grade teacher left and we're moving a current person in, so it'll all be in that hiring status
Okay.
section of the moves. We actually had less moves than we thought we would have, so.
I don't know if you have it off the top of your head, but what are we tracking for like a retention rate?
Oh, I didn't do it yet.
That's okay.
I mean, I can,
No, I just couldn't math it, so I figured if you had it in your head.
usually at the end of July, I'm kinda looking at the number.
What are we, can you speak to how you get information of like why they're resigning and leaving, just so we can utilize that knowledge to try to retain people in the future?
Yeah, so usually the retirements, they're going on to live their best life. So we have a resignation retirement form. On that form, there's a section with all these check boxes, and you can check as many as you want, and they are, probably the 20 most common reasons people leave their work for any kind of position. And they can check all those boxes. And then there's two sections where they can say, well, one's good and one's bad.
Yeah.
What made you choose to leave? And what would make you stay? So usually people talk nicely about their colleagues and the kids, and then, most of the reasons are the same across the whole country. Pay and benefits, right? I mean, that's what everybody who goes to work wants, pay and benefits. And so that's usually why people choose to resign, but we also have people who are staying home with children. We have people whose spouse is moving and they're moving too. We have people that leave their profession completely. And so then we keep a spreadsheet of all of that. And then next week, this week is already at Tuesday. Hopefully next week, send out a stay survey to the people who sign their contract by whatever day it is I send it out. It's usually a lot of people. And because they signed their contract already, that means they're choosing to stay. They're not holding out until June 15th maybe to hopefully find something else. It's usually like 60 or 70% of people sign by the time it goes out. And then they have questions about what makes you stay, what would make you leave, and they can pick all the things too. So,
Have we done I don't believe we have, but when was the last time we did an employee engagement survey? Because obviously you're capturing the
Yeah.
people who are staying.
was it last year?
Employee
Or
engagement?
the year before?
Thought it was
Was
last year.
June's last year?
Last year, meaning 25, 26.
I'd have to look.
Alright.
They get sent out by a different department, and then that person gets the results back. I feel like it was 2 years ago.
There's one going on next year.
Yeah, we're up
Can we
next.
do one this year?
It's not in the Studer contract.
Could you guys project like what would be the cost, just because
Well,
I
it's
do know
still-
turnover costs also
Oh,
costs
Like to
money.
still do it for this school year?
No,
Oh,
not in the next 2 weeks, I'm
yeah,
not
I was like,
suggesting
oh,
that.
people hate a survey. I mean, they
No, I'm not
begrudgingly do mine.
suggesting
Um,
we put out a survey in the next 2 weeks. I
I
would just
think
be
we're
curious
next for
of
next year.
what engagement surveys, just to understand why teachers are leaving. One thing that goes to our student outcomes are teachers that we retain. I also know when we turn over teachers, obviously if they retire, we have retirement savings, but the ones who are resigning, it costs time and money to replace them. If we can look at ways of how we can improve it so they want to stay and don't want to keep looking. And I also know our funds are tight, so are there things that maybe don't cost money that we can look at adjusting to make them culture?
Yeah, I think we're next for next year. to
Yeah,
have
maybe
the-
next meeting, could you let me
Yes,
know
I
where
will
we're,
check,
okay.
because we did move to 1 a year in the contract this year.
I'm sure we're up.
I feel like we're next for employees.
Is it just because we don't wanna pay for it every year? It's pretty common for companies to do employee engagement surveys
Yeah, that was-
annually.
Those are the cuts.
That and then a healthy rotation where we did parents this year. So the parents got the survey this year. And then
Students were last year.
students were before, pretty sure. But we have a set rotation. That's in
Yeah,
the
I guess I would be curious of what's the schedule, and then if we did add in an employee engagement survey, what would
Pretty
be
sure.
the additional cost that we would have to
Well,
look at?
If not, it's.
So the Director of Curriculum and Learning is our liaison with Studer.
Oh.
And
Yes,
they're the ones who manage the Studer contract and then all the surveying and other professional development and work that goes along with that.
correct.
And then the results get back to that person and then they disseminate it out. And I think the Studer surveys have been more well-received is because they truly are going to a different entity. And we
They can
only
be
get back
anonymous.
data, we have absolutely no access to any personal information or who took it or who said what.
It's not, because it's important.
It's completely anonymous because it's going through a whole third party that only releases so much to us. Like when I send one out, people have been good about it, but
You're gonna get
there's
more.
always the, oh, she knows, I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't really know, but, I mean, I guess I could really try to figure it out if I wanted to, but that would be really hard, so there's just the idea, like, when your employer sends out the survey, there's some apprehension around it. When Studer sends it out, it seems to be more well-received of being truly anonymous.
Yeah, I would just,
But
I think it's important
I
to
sent
know.
out my state survey 2 years ago, and I mean, I think over 80% of the people completed it, that got it, so I mean, it was well received. Now, state survey is a little friendlier, right? You're talking about why you stay. And
Yeah.
It might say a few negative things, but they're not so negative that they made you leave. Where an exit survey is maybe a little more
That only
pointed.
goes to like the teaching population, it doesn't go
Yes.
to all employee groups either.
The
Yeah.
Studer survey goes to everybody.
Right, yeah, I'd be curious of the schedule and if we were to add one on for the next school year, what would be the additional cost?
There is a schedule.
Yes.
I understand, but I do think it's, I find it valuable to have employee engagement surveys every year, so I'd love to see the cost.
Is that something that I would do within curriculum then?
I think the contract might come through there.
It does. Yeah. And I sit in on student meetings once a month. We have on-site days, I think twice a
Yeah.
year with our student rep.
And they build it, like it's their,
Mhm.
they build the survey.
They built the survey and the feedback from the parents this year, that was the one presentation I brought to the board about, the parents being generally very happy in all the different 15 questions, those were all suitor questions. So, fine doing it as much as we wanna pay.
Yeah, no, we can get
I would
that, I
like
just,
to just
Part of
know
the
the
feedback
options.
from the strategic plan was survey overload.
yeah,
So we got hit pretty hard with that in the strategic plan feedback.
From
There was so much,
teachers or everybody?
just the feedback. in
from
general.
staff, family, and families,
Well,
yeah.
I will say, just in my time, I've had people asking for it back, and so that's what I just wanna look into.
Yeah,
We
no,
can-
I can find out, I just don't manage the
No,
contract, I don't know.
I understand, I just, since you were talking about state
Yeah, we
surveys,
can-
I felt that
We can do a
makes sense.
survey as much as you want.
I'm not gonna suggest we do a survey every week.
Oh, really?
It would change, I promise you.
It's really what you
An
want to do.
October survey is very different than a January survey and a May survey, yeah.
Yeah,
Same
it is.
people.
Outside of, any other questions with this item? Okay, so, page. Okay, so that is all of our discussion items, so now we are moving to convene into a closed session authorized under Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C to discuss employment and compensation for administrator and union negotiations. Does anyone motion to convene?
I'll make the motion.
I will second to convene to closed session.
And then. All in favor.
Oh, all in favor? Say aye. Aye. All